The Global Conservation Corps presents the RHINO Man podcast. I'm your host, John Jerko, and the lead producer and director of RHINO Man the movie. This podcast series is a way for me to interview top conservationists on the topics of rhinos, the poaching crisis, the importance of rangers, and community engagement, all as a way to create awareness around these issues and to promote the coming release of our film. RHINO Man is a feature-length documentary about the courageous rangers who risk their lives every day to protect the rhinos. We're working on a theatrical and online release come June, July, so stay tuned for trailers, screenings, and more. This episode features RHINO Man Director of Photography, Nick Smith.
When I started it, I knew nothing about the topic and rhinos, and being here in the U.S., you know, it kind of makes sense that you don't really have that kind of knowledge. So I think, and I've always loved documentaries, and I feel like you can always take away something from a documentary, and a lot of times it is, you know, it kind of changes your life in a little bit, and that's what's always attracted me to documentaries.
But before we begin, a word from our sponsors. Today's episode is sponsored by Wildlife & Co. To tell you more, Wildlife & Co. is on a mission to protect Earth's ecosystems and wildlife. So the way it works, Wildlife & Co. partners with artists to create unique, high-quality, fair trade apparel that you can purchase in their online store. And then you can look stylish while supporting your love for wildlife. A minimum of 10% of the proceeds from their new apparel line will fund Wildlife & Co.'s nonprofit partners in the field. Another benefit is that a portion of the proceeds from their custom art apparel lines go back to the artists. So not only are you supporting conservation efforts, but you're enabling talented artists to flourish. Going above and beyond this sponsorship, Robbie is putting together an awesome collaboration with GCC and RHINO Man, where they're making a special run of cotton organic hoodies with artwork by Kyle LeBlanc. Those hoodies will feature a limited edition rhino design, and the sales from these hoodies will directly benefit RHINO Man and GCC. So make sure to check them out on Instagram and get some cool apparel that'll support the cause at wildlifeandco.com. You can also see their link in the description, and again, that's wildlifeandco.com. Sponsorships are what will allow us to keep producing this podcast at a high level. We need your support. So if you'd like to sponsor the RHINO Man podcast, get your brand in front of our community, and support our conservation efforts, reach out to us at rhinomanthemovie.org/contact or email directly at info@rhinomanthemovie.org. Thank you for your support. In this episode, I'm speaking with my good friend, Nick Smith. Nick is an experienced DP and photographer in Atlanta, Georgia. He shot with amazing brands and nonprofits all around the world. Nick is also the original director of photography for RHINO Man, and he led the project with his work for 3 years before I was even involved. In this conversation, we talk about Nick's journey into RHINO Man, along with his passion for photography and travel. Nick is a really humble guy, but he's one of the most inspiring people I know. And a little note before we get started, I apologize, this is my very first video podcast, and the camera focus was a little bit off on my side. Luckily, Nick looks great, and I might have been a little nervous and didn't do the greatest job at leading this conversation, but Nick was amazing at sharing his passion and love for film and photography and this story of RHINO Man. So can't wait for you to jump in. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Nick Smith. So yeah, man, this is this is the first video episode of RHINO Man podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate you doing this with me.
I'm stoked to be on it, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I feel like we've got a lot to cover. For those that don't know, you have been highly involved in this project since the very beginning, and before I got involved. So I think it'll be fun to dive into some of that story, but then also, yeah, you're really into travel, adventure, the outdoors, and I think those all kind of commingle with even this story. I feel like a lot of it had those elements, and I'm just kind of curious how that all kind of came about in your mind.
Yeah, I'm excited. It started a while back, so it's always good to kind of relive some of those memories and moments. So I'm excited to dive in and get into it and man, share some stories. Why
don't you just start with how did RHINO Man come into your life? I don't know if you remember. I know you were working at Friendly Human. That's where we met eventually. But how was this project presented to you?
Yeah, you were saying, I worked at Friendly Human, and we were doing some kind of nonprofit videos and stuff, and Justin Walker, which we both know very well, that basically was like, hey, we have this project in South Africa with Matt, and we didn't know Matt at the time, so.
Do you remember, was there like a phone call, or did like Justin come into the room, was like, hey, there's this thing, we're gonna go to Africa, get ready?
Yeah,
it
was basically one of those, and it was like, you never really, I guess with production stuff, unless you are on the plane and going down there, there's always a lot of kind of chatter and stuff with different projects, but this one, all of a sudden we were on a plane to South Africa, Justin and I, and, it felt real.
Did it happen pretty quick? I mean, from when you found out?
Yeah, and it was, the whole thing was just to shoot a 10 or 15 minute little piece at the Wildlife College, which is still really, would have been amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And yeah, all of a sudden we were on a flight, and we landed in Johannesburg and then flew out to Kruger.
Was that your first time to Africa?
That was my first time to Africa.
What was that experience like? Were you pretty excited to get there? Did you have any ideas in your mind of like what this would be like?
Yeah, I grew up watching a lot of nature documentaries and, all that kind of stuff. So it's like actually landing and being there was just surreal.
What was Joburg like for you when you first got there? I think most of the flights, at least now, land at night, so I don't know if you got there at night.
We landed at night, and we actually rented a car, which is on the other side of the road, and the other side of the driver's on the other side. So that was,
Who did Justin
ended up driving, and we're driving, and we actually, I think we went, it was in the winter months, so it was actually cold when we arrived, which I wasn't really expecting. You always think of South Africa,
especially Joburg.
It was like kind of a brutal cold or something. It was shocking.
You're like, where are we?
Yeah, I was like, it's dark, it's cold, you're jet lagged and whatever. So yeah, we ended up driving to Kruger that trip.
So like you landed, got in the car and drove to Kruger, which is like a 6-hour drive.
Yeah, it was like 6 hours drive. You're dodging potholes and.
Yeah, was Justin ready for the potholes? I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
It is a pretty hectic drive. I've done that a couple times.
You're definitely in it at that point. And then you get to I forget the name of the mountains there.
Yeah, it's part of the Drakensberg, I think. I don't know if that part of the range has a specific name, but I know you kind of weave through the mountains there.
Yeah, as soon as you weave through the mountains, and then you get you can see all of it there, and it's just amazing.
So getting to Kruger, did you guys stay at the Wildlife College that first night?
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite memories of that whole trip was as soon as we got to the Wildlife College, we actually picked Matt and his dad up in town there, and then drove to the Wildlife College. And after being on a 16, 17-hour flight, and then a 6-hour drive, and then getting there, and it's all new, it's all surreal. And we get there, and we get to our tent that we're staying in, and we hear singing immediately. Like,
oh man,
the Rangers were singing, and then like the sun.
So did you guys drive through the night then, and basically?
No, I think we actually stayed one night in Joburg.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then woke up and then drove.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then we got there and we heard singing, and I hadn't really unpacked my bag, set up the cameras, and so it was a mad dash of just, where's the singing coming from?
Yeah.
We threw the cameras together, got all the rigs set up, and then started filming. And I think some of that shots are in the film.
Yeah, those shots were beautiful. They're kind of towards the end of the film with the Rangers dancing and singing and celebrating.
That was, I think that was the first record button that I hit.
That's pretty incredible.
Was those shots, and I just.
The light was magical too.
The light was so nice.
Perfect light,
like,
and their voices. I mean,
yeah.
I think that was like one of the best. That crew had been there, from what I understand, for like a year training. So they had been like, they're like super tight, and their singing was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the highlights, I'd say. Just getting on the ground and then just going. So
what kind of happened on that first trip? Is that when you met Matt for the first time, when you guys picked him up?
Yeah, we met Matt, and
what'd you think of that character?
From the very beginning, just didn't trust him. No, I'm just kidding. No, absolutely not. I think the first time, so we picked him up at the airport, him and his dad, and I sat in the back seat, and we had so much gear in our Lavina was the name of the car. It was Lavina. We had so much gear that in the back seat, there was gear between Matt and I for like a hour drive or something.
Yeah.
So the first hour that I met him, we were talking kind of like
He's like through the little cracks.
through the little cracks, yeah. But oh man, yeah, Matt, I've learned so much about nature and conservation and all that immediately from Matt. I mean, he just kind of throws it out there, and
it's his blood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you guys were in Kruger at the Wildlife College. Did you capture part of a selection on that first trip? Is that when you met Ruben for the first time?
That's when we met Ruben. And I mean, just to go back, we kind of dove into this RHINO MAN project. Me not knowing, and we didn't know anything about, we knew some of the stats with the rhinos and kind of the overarching kind of theme of it, but we were learning on the ground there, which was just, and Justin's very, very good at that. So, I mean, that's the whole part of documentary is, you're just kind of learning as you go. Yeah.
Cause originally you said to shoot a piece for the Wildlife College. Do you remember what the final product that you were originally trying to create was?
I believe it was just a 10 or 15 minute short piece around the rangers and the selection process. Yeah.
And so it was mainly focused like, let's get the rangers, get as much as we can. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was going to ask you that question, like how much did you know going into it? So, I mean, we'll talk about it too, like your love of the outdoors and stuff like that, but I don't know how much did you know about rhinos?
Yeah. Like I was saying,
that whole side of things.
Basically nothing, because here in the US, I've done a lot of camping and backpacking and stuff. And, here on the East Coast, we really only have, black bears and, there's some mountain lions and stuff, but, very rarely do you see bobcats or mountain lions. And going there and shooting and camping in Big Five with some real animals was definitely like it's like a different world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think at least for me, like when I went there for the first time, it's the first time I had that feeling of like, oh, like if you're just like lost out here in the bush, like there's things that are going to eat you. Like it's that primal experience that we've kind of lost for the most part here in the States. Like you said, you can get into like grizzly bear or mountain lion country and get that feeling, but you really have to work at it to get out there.
Yeah.
So that first trip, can you talk about like how long were you guys there? What was it like as you were kind of stumbling through trying to figure out what the heck you're shooting or capturing and what these rangers are doing?
Yeah. I mean, I believe we were there for a week and a half for the first trip. And we were shooting interviews and B-roll and getting shots of, we would go on game drives and actually get shots of animals and stuff. And this first time I was, seen elephants and lions, and we actually saw a leopard on that first trip, which was amazing.
Yeah, you don't see that too often.
Yeah.
So.
But the whole time we were there, and I think for a week, we would go out on game drives, but we didn't see any rhino, which was kind of telling for their situation. But yeah, the whole trip, and then, we're shooting this piece about rhinos and we don't have any rhino footage. So it was like, but towards the end of the trip, we found a couple rhino to film. Yeah.
Some wild rhinos. Did you encounter a carcass or anything on that trip?
On the first trip, we did not. So yeah, on the second trip, we actually did, but
yeah,
I mean, yeah, that was intense. We can go into it now or go into it later.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, talk about that feeling when you first saw it, so this is the second trip. The first one, just to stay on that for a moment longer, you captured quite a bit of footage in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And then you came back and you guys basically put together, was that when you made the trailer? Was after that first trip?
The first trip, yeah, we came back, and I mean, with Justin and Matt and myself, I mean, we were waking up early and staying up late, and I love that kind of, just like we were pushing to getting all the, because we had a set time there, and we were just like capturing as much as we could.
Yeah, just maximize that time.
And I remember we would shoot for the whole day, and we'd come back to our tent, our little base camp tent. And
were you guys staying at the ranger camp at that time? At the wildlife college?
We were staying at the wildlife college,
okay.
and those
kind of tents they have there. Yeah.
But yeah, we would come back and dump all the footage that night, and we were just like, yeah, you know, we were like
pretty stoked about it all.
Stoked. And we went into the community a little bit and did some filming. So some of those shots are in the trailer.
Yeah.
The original trailer, the first trailer.
Yeah. So when you got back, I mean, it was like you said, you were trying to put together like a 10, 15-minute piece about the Rangers. Mm-hmm. But what inspired you guys to do the trailer instead, or as well as the short piece?
Yeah, I don't know. I cut the trailer and I was, I don't know. I came back kind of pretty inspired of like, yeah, this is definitely cool. Like, there's definitely something here. So I cut the trailer together, and everybody seemed to like it. So I was like, yeah, this is. I mean, just coming back with that kind of footage and all the stories and footage that, yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. So I feel like that trailer kind of inspired everyone to say, well, I feel like there's a movie here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, it was definitely, oh yeah, there's a lot more that we could capture here.
Yeah. And this was like what, 2015 on that first trip?
2015, 2016.
Which is like, we're getting close to 10 years, which is kind of insane.
Yeah. Which is insane.
Yeah. Cause I mean, that original trailer, that's honestly what I think when I moved to Atlanta in 2016, I'd come across Friendly Human because you guys were sponsoring the Creative Mornings at the time.
Yeah.
And saw that trailer and was like, damn, these guys are doing some pretty awesome things.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, like there's the corporate video side, but then it was always like nonprofits and giving back.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was like, these guys are doing some really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love to work with them. So I stalked you guys for like literally
I remember
a year.
that. I would actually do some of the filming there for Creative Mornings.
Yeah.
I met you a couple times. And
yeah, like, hey, how's it going, man? I'm that guy that just keeps trying to get a job.
Yeah. It worked, though. I mean,
it did. It did. You lured me in. So you guys make that trailer, and then I guess what kind of happened from there? I mean, what do you remember? What inspired the second trip? I know from what I heard, there's like some social media responses to the trailer that got you guys a little more invigorated to keep pursuing.
I think Nat Geo kind of reached out and made a couple comments on the trailer. It's like, hey, this is awesome. Let us know when it's out and stuff. And that was like, all right. And then some of the people at the production company was like, yeah, let's try to make another trip and go back and get some more footage to make a longer piece, which was awesome. And I can't remember, I'm kind of fuzzy on the time between the first trip and the second trip, you know, how long that was.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it was 2016 according to the folders.
The folder structure, yeah.
If they're correct. I don't know.
Hopefully that was well organized. But yeah, so it was, we went back in, say, 2016. And we kind of did that trip right. We got a vehicle and a little bit bigger crew and stuff.
Yeah, you guys had like a big truck and brought a ton of equipment.
Yeah. There
was like, I guess 4 of you all together.
Yeah.
You, Daniel, Justin, Matt. So.
Yeah. And, going back, we were, it's a production company, so we're doing a lot more corporate stuff that kind of pays the bills and, make sure, pays for a lot of stuff. And so there was a lot of that work on top of, kind of producing this documentary in the background.
Yeah. So you were kind of like juggling a little bit of both, because you were basically the lead on this for a while, right? In terms of Friendly Human, the actual production side. Yeah,
definitely like you said, I was kind of the lead on this. And after shooting the first 2 trips, at some point it kind of feels like your baby, with, I think with filmmaking and especially like shooting and like being a DP and all that, like, you put a lot of work into those shots and all those shots, you kind of have like a little memory with it. And, the second trip was just, it was amazing.
How long was that second trip? It was a lot longer than the first one, right?
Yeah, I believe it was 2 or 3 weeks.
Mm.
It was right around there. Yeah, I remember. I mean, not to go into we when we
go into stories.
well, it was. I think it was the first trip as well, but the company from the Human was like, hey, I believe it was the second trip. You know, it's like, hey, you need to get like life insurance. Like you just go ahead and like, I think we bought, you know, a bunch of life insurance for the 3 weeks that we were down there or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was like $150 or $200. They're like, yeah, just put it on the company card.
It's not too bad of a deal.
Yeah, it didn't seem like too bad of a deal, but it like kind of set the tone of like, all right, this is being down there with wild animals.
Yeah.
Can we actually pause for a second?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get it. I'm kind of cold.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna
go
just
for it.
throw a sweater on.
Yeah. So Nick's back now with a new shirt on.
Yeah,
so
it's getting kind of cold. So.
it's not magic. It's just cold. So yeah, the second trip. What was the idea behind it? Were you guys starting to really consider it as a film, and was it? I mean, from what I remember coming into the project and just like looking through the footage, like you guys went so many different places and explored so many different characters. I mean, was it a bit of it just kind of searching for what that story was? Or, I mean, I know Matt had a lot of these connections and it was kind of just calling them up and getting out there and capturing those stories.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely Justin and Matt that really spearheaded it. I mean, they were on the phone just producing as much as they could, and any kind of lead or any kind of interesting story, they definitely were on top of it. So yeah, it was, and I would just shoot as much as I could.
Yeah. Like, tell me where to go.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, the second trip is when we met Anton for the first time, which was.
Yeah. What was your memory of him like when meeting him? And you guys spent a lot of time with him on that trip and some of the others, right?
Yeah, we met him at a ranger picket out in the bush, and it was it was like 3 or 4 tents surrounded by an electric fence and kind of a makeshift kitchen area, and everything was just kind of conditions there. You know, the water and everything was like pretty. They were out there in that picket, just doing what they do, and it was just, that was the first time we met him. And
was that the first rangers in the on the job that you kind of came in contact with as well?
Yeah, the first trip we did a lot of rangers that were in training. So we shot a lot of that. But yeah, I think that was at the Timbervardy Ranger. Those were the first rangers on-duty rangers that we met.
Yeah. What was Anton like when you met him and talked to him? I don't know if you can kind of recall his personality, even from those multiple trips, and what he was like.
Yeah, he was the most soft-spoken, kind. Just, you could tell he's seen and done a lot. It was very humble, very very, very kind.
Yeah. Do you have any memories that stand out from your times with him?
Yeah. So when we were shooting a lot, and we had access to a truck at some point, and we would just throw all the camera gear in the back of the truck, and in those African trucks, you kind of stand in the back, and a lot of times, and some of it's in the film a lot, with Anton, and we would just ride all through the bush, just looking for animals, looking for, stuff to film, and just spending time, sometimes silently, just riding into the bush on this, in the back of a truck, which is, it was surreal. Yeah.
The Buckies, as they call them there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I spent a ton of time with those guys in the back of the truck, and a lot of times they would just be speaking in Chitsongo when they were in the back.
Yeah.
Always joking with each other too. Just like,
yeah.
Those guys are always cracking up, and I'm like, what are you guys saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And then we met Anton, and then, we got to know him, and, he was definitely, just the best And then as we were leaving, we found, I guess it's part of the movie, but I don't know how much you want to.
Yeah, you could tell it.
I mean, yeah. But yeah, that was the whole, when Anton caught those poachers and on the tar road, I think they called it the tar road. Was, but there's so many other stories outside of that thing. Is that day, they caught the poachers, and Justin and Matt were like, we got a lot of good footage, and just to kind of congratulate them and tell them that they did such an awesome job. We asked them where they wanted to go for lunch, and we were like, hey, we're going to take you wherever you want to go for lunch. And there was actually a KFC, believe it or not. Like,
I had a feeling that's where you're going.
Yeah. So they're all like, yeah, we want to go to KFC. That's where we want to go. And it's like, so I got into the back of the truck with probably like 7 or 8 Rangers, and we drove probably 45 minutes to KFC.
Damn, down the tar road.
Down the tar road, and going through town, there's in the back of like the truck with 6 or 7 Rangers, there's a skinny white dude in the back. So we got a lot of like head turns going through town, which was pretty fun. But
yeah, those guys are good, and it is kind of funny how popular KFC is in South Africa. But the only bummer is they need to get some mashed potatoes down there. They don't know what they're missing.
Yeah,
it's only French fries.
Only French fries.
No mashed potatoes and gravy or biscuits. So gotta call corporate, get some changes. So you guys also on that trip connected with some more of the folks on the rhino side as well, right? I don't know if that's when you met Dr. Johan Murray on that trip, maybe one of the others.
Mm-hmm.
I know eventually you guys went to Amakala at some point with Will Folds.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, each one of these trips, and I feel, there was so much going on that it's hard to recall. It's like every day was just the wildest day, the longest day. And then once you do that for 2 or 3 weeks, all this stuff just kind of gets a little blurry
together.
So I probably could look at, we would dump the footage every single night. So that's probably the best way to kind of like
jog the memories.
Yeah. Which is pretty funny, but it's like every day was, and I'm sure you have stories as well.
Yeah. There's like a couple weeks
similar.
in 2018 was just like a blur of like nonstop.
Every day is just the wildest day.
Are there any other people that stood out from those trips that you guys interviewed, or that just connected with you, or even experiences, I guess, along the way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first trip, I don't know if they're in I don't think they're in the film, but Samuel and Tabung, we were there, them for a good.
Were they Rangers training
at
the college?
They were Rangers training, but they were young. They were our age, and they were just like the coolest guys to hang around, But yeah, those were the first kind of Ranger guys that I've met that were just like, okay. It was amazing.
Yeah, I feel like the majority of the Rangers that you meet are just have a lot of passion for the work, and are also like just fun to hang out with. Lots of jokes and teasing and stuff like that. So yeah, it's for me. I kind of started out at the Wildlife College as well. I think we did the same thing. We stayed in Joburg a night, drove down to Kruger, spent a night. It's did you met Ashwell and Anel, right?
Yeah.
Stayed at their place. That's when the cot that I was sleeping on broke, and the infamous cot broke in the middle of the night, and I just fell on the floor. So that was a good memory. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think for me, and I don't know if it's the same for you, it's like after that first trip, the wildlife and the nature was amazing, obviously, but it was like the people, just like a different vibe. I think, I don't know if it's because it feels like a lot of people in that space, you have to kind of really want it to be able to do it, because it's not a high paying job in really any of those positions in conservation. So it has to be your passion. And I think people that are pursuing that, it's kind of like I don't know if you felt any of that at all. What was your feeling kind of coming away from South Africa and some of those people that you met?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I kind of came away just like it's a very complicated kind of thing that's going on down there. It's not black or white, and it's complex, and that's why I think it's stayed a problem for so long, that it's a tough situation that they're in. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good people down there, and there's a lot of pretty bad people. So
do you remember meeting Ruben for the first time and what he was like?
Yes, I remember. Oh man, yeah, it was. I think the first time we met Ruben, it was late at night, and there was a couple bottles of whiskey involved.
Yeah, this is the story that Ruben wants to keep secret forever.
Yeah, and yeah, that was some of those stories were just like, wow, it's everything from plashing. Sorry, fumbling words, but yeah, everything from crashing planes in the Congo to all these crazy ranger training stories, and just Africa, just all these African adventures that he's been on, and all the work that he's done training different people, and for different reasons as well. It's not always just to protect wildlife. Sometimes it was for different wars and different purposes, which was it was definitely really cool to hear all those stories that he has.
Yeah, I feel like he and Marianne both just have like a treasure trove of stories, and it's like, I mean, I think that's kind of going back to like when I got back from South Africa and was just thinking about what stuck with me. It's like people there have lived. Maybe that's what it really is. It's like, here it's easy to get kind of comfortable in your routine, or you work at the office, and there's not, the street's the most dangerous thing driving down the road. But I feel like there a lot of people have just lived life to the max in some ways, and Ruben and his wife Marianne both have definitely done that and have some just amazing stories. And because that I wasn't there for that night, but I always hear about it, and it's the bottles of whiskey, and then the next morning is probably, I think it's the interview we used the most in the film with Ruben. Somehow he pushed through, but it sounded like everyone was hurting. Huh?
Yeah, everybody was hurting the night after that. I mean, they have such a strong but gentle personality, which is like the biggest takeaway. Like, they're super smart, and it was great to hear all the stories and there were some other guys around the table drinking whiskey, and just hearing those stories of, a different world from here in the U.S. Like you were saying, it was really great. Yeah,
kind of like a full education between like seeing the wildlife, the rangers, and hearing those stories. And yeah, it's definitely something that sticks with you.
Yeah, I'm from Georgia, so it was like hearing all those stories, and you're like, what? It's just another world.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just another kind of, I'm worried about like 285 traffic, and
they have elephants crossing the road.
Yeah, we got in a couple of traffic jams due to elephants.
So you've done multiple trips. I think you did like 4 trips altogether. I think.
Yeah.
And what was that process of developing the film itself? Because you did a lot of the editing of the original version of the film, right?
Yeah, I got it to a certain, I want to say watchable. I don't know if it was quite watchable at that point. It was. We got into the kind of a big problem with so many storylines, and there was. I mean, we tried to explain everything too much. I think it was just so many.
Like you said, it's such a complex. I mean, I didn't know anything about it going into it either, but there's so much nuance and complexity and different characters that you could. And that's the thing. Everyone has an amazing story too. So it's
like you just hear these stories, and I don't know. I can't remember quite the exact amount of interviews that we shot, but I mean, it was probably 100 or so,
I wouldn't doubt it.
I mean, it was just...
There's some that I haven't even watched that are on there. I mean, there's a ton of footage.
Yeah. there's so much footage.
Well, you originally did like a short film cut, right? Which was like a pretty solid,
yeah,
was like 18, 20 minutes, something like that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah, there's so many different, and this is kind of the first big documentary project that I've worked on. So there was a good amount of learning involved in the whole process, both from a filmmaking standpoint and from the topic and the subject. So I didn't come into it with a huge knowledge of wildlife and rhinos and all that. So it's like, it was a lot to learn.
Yeah. It's kind of like leaning on Matt and the people that you connect with and following that story. I mean, I was the same when I got connected to it. It's like, other than, rural Ohio, being outside, picking up bugs and things like that, that was like my conservation history up until that point. So it's a huge learning curve. And I mean, I think for you guys too, like, as we've been talking, like, it really wasn't, you didn't set out like, let's shoot a feature film about this topic and plan it and develop the story and then go do it. It was like you kind of you started out with this smaller project that you got in the mix of, and then it just kind of blossomed from there. So I think it's just part of the process of like searching for what the story is and who to follow. Because I mean, even just thinking about it as someone coming into it from the outside and saying they want to make a film about it, I think you really need to spend a lot of time on the grounds, talking to people, learning and listening, especially with a topic like this. Otherwise, you're just gonna make up a story that doesn't really connect with the reality of it.
Yeah, and I think that was a huge part of it, is staying true to the story and explaining it in a way that people would want to see and watch it. So
I mean, you did quite a few cuts of that, and then I think, like I said, I saw the trailer, and that's when I eventually stalked you guys and got involved. And a big part of the reason I wanted to work with Friendly Human was for the movie attracted me. So that was like the first thing. I was like, so what's going on with this RHINO Man documentary? and yeah, like you said, I kind of got involved, and that was kind of my take, was like, there's all these amazing stories. Let's try to like narrow it down to a couple of them. And I think Ruben and Anton are the two that really stood out the most. And kind of with Matt's help, we went from there. But yeah, I mean, we're going to talk more, but I just want to thank you for like all the amazing work that you put in this project and what you did. Cause I mean, it changed, this project changed my life. And without even just that trailer, I mean, that's what attracted me to this whole thing and the work. And I think it always felt, a little awkward for me, because as I started to like take more and more control of it, knowing you and becoming friends with you and working with you on other stuff, it's like it just felt weird, because I kind of knew it was your baby, and I didn't want to like feel like I was taking it away from you. And I feel like if it would have been a perfect world, we probably would have worked a lot closer through the whole process to the end. But just because of the business and the work and everything else, I feel like it was hard to have your time on it as well. But yeah, I just want to thank you for doing all this amazing work and creating something that's kind of brought all these amazing people together, really, to do this story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that you. So when you came on, and there were certain times where the documentary kind of took a back burner, for some corporate client work. So a lot of times it would get put on the back burner, and we wouldn't be working on it, and it was just sitting there, for months on end. And when you came on, like it was my baby, but it was also somebody else was taking interest in, and I can't thank you enough for where you've taken it, even though I kind of was hit that first shutter button, I'm so just like impressed and being such a good friend. I was like, yeah, I'm so glad you took it to where it is. And, yeah.
No, I appreciate that, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's been a crazy journey for, I think, everyone involved. And
I mean, like you said, like it changed your life, but it also changed mine, being there on the ground. It definitely gives you a different perspective of life, and what it means and what it can mean. So
yeah, and just, I mean, there's the people in the film, but then like Matt and everyone at Friendly Human and that group of people that kind of in some way came together through this film in different ways. It's just, it's, I don't know. It's one of those things where if you follow something like this, you don't know where it's going to take you. And I think you got to just kind of trust that,
and
things will come from it.
It was always kind of more than, at least with, like with Justin and Matt and Daniel and stuff. It was like, we were making a film, obviously, but it was always kind of a little bit more than a film. We, Justin just on the side, I didn't even really know, but Justin got Anton and his family like, a couple mattresses on one of the trips, just like, hey, like let's actually help out. It's like, that was the first time I was like, okay, wow, we're not just here getting footage and it was there to like build relationships and actually do some good, which I think attracted a lot of people.
I mean, I guess that for Matt, that was the whole intention from the very beginning, was to tell the Rangers story and bring more awareness and have some kind of impact that made a difference in their lives and the work that was being done there. And like you said, I feel like everyone involved has kind of gone above and beyond what a normal filmmaker would do. And I feel like there's maybe a certain type of filmmaker that is like, oh, I want to stay, kind of objective and away from the subjects of the film, almost like an anthropologist or something like that. But I don't know. It's, for me, I think it is a lot about relationships, and especially with a film like this, it's hard not to get close to the people and the work they're doing, especially when you see the passion that they're putting into it. So to kind of step back that far just doesn't feel right, I guess, especially when stuff like lives are actually at stake and things are happening. It's, for me, I definitely gone a little over the top on that side of things, but I think it's hard not to when people like Anton or like Ruben and these other Rangers that are involved in this way. So I guess we're getting close to releasing this film finally. Like I said, almost 10 years. This year's 9. I don't know. Do you know what month you guys went in 2015?
It was during, it was cold, so it was probably
like June or somewhere
June
around there.
Or July.
So about the time we're going to release this will be 9 years from the beginning.
Actually, I think it was in June. I remember being over there for my birthday.
Oh yeah.
So it was probably in June.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. So I don't know, just for you, what do you hope this film does, or what does it mean, getting it out into the world? I mean, you started this quite a few years ago. Like what do you hope for when this film gets released?
That's a great question. It's like, when I started it, I knew nothing about the topic and rhinos and being here in the US, it kind of makes sense that you don't really have that kind of knowledge. So I think, and I've always loved documentaries, and I feel like you can always take away something from a documentary, and a lot of times it is, it kind of changes your life in a little bit, and that's what's always attracted me to documentaries. And I think I would love to people to watch it and know the situation of what the wildlife is going through, but what also the Rangers are going through. I mean, it's called RHINO Man, so it's like what people are having to do to keep our wildlife around and keep it relevant and keep it.
No, I mean, because in the States, I think of a ranger or warden or something like that, and you just think of a guy that walks around and like tickets people for just kind of doing stupid things in a national park, but you don't really imagine them having to deal with, and some do in certain areas, but for the most part, you don't imagine them having to deal with, armed people all the time that are willing to shoot or kill them or threaten their lives. And it really opens that world up to the reality of what these Rangers are facing in some parts of the world. So I feel like we can keep talking about RHINO Man, but I'd love to dig a little bit into just like, how did you're a pretty adventurous person, and I really admire you for that. And like, I'm jealous sometimes. I feel like I'm too like heads down doing who knows what, but
I don't know about that, but
I feel like you travel quite extensively, a lot of different places. You have like a adventurous heart. Like, where did that come from? Can you remember or recall like some of your first travels that gave you that bug?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, my dad and I moved to Ireland, and my parents were separated. So I kind of grew up flying from Atlanta to Ireland kind of by myself a couple times. So it's like, so from a fairly young age, I feel like I was traveling through airports by myself and being able to travel and negotiate the travel by myself. So I was like, yeah, this is, I always enjoyed it. It was always like a little mini adventure going back home or whatever.
What was Ireland like for the first time for you getting there?
Yeah, it was, Ireland was just like, definitely like a culture shock, being, culture shock for a 15-year-old, people would talk funny and, whatever. But yeah, and then from there, could travel around Europe pretty cheap. So that's kind of how I got into it a little bit. My dad definitely, I think my dad has the same kind of adventurous spirit and transferred it down to me. So I was like,
You guys did quite a few trips around Europe, didn't you?
yeah. My dad always had kind of adventurous, just going to European cities and stuff like that. And I guess I just kind of took that and ran with it. I've always loved traveling. So
It seems like you really, at least now, really like to combine it with the outdoors quite a bit as well. Like, when did that start happening? Was that from growing up in Georgia, just kind of being outside, or, how did you get more connected to, you're doing like climbing, you're climbing mountains, some crazy trail runs and things like that. So
yeah, so like, I think it's not like with outdoors and stuff, you don't, it's something you kind of build into, you grow into. So, you might do like a camping trip. If you're not into the outdoors, you might start off with a camping trip, car camping, all your stuff's in your car. And then, you might want to get a little bit more adventurous. So you do a backpacking trip into the woods, and then you do like an overnight trip. So then you have to think about what's all on your back and, what you carrying in your tent and your food and how much food are you taking, and just being prepared and stuff, and not taking too much. So your pack's super heavy.
I feel like you enjoy that little obsession with like, how do I pare everything down and take the right amount of gear?
Yeah,
it's like part of the fun.
It's kind of part of the fun for me, and I've always liked that with. It's the same with camera gear and stuff. Like you would love to take all the camera gear that you could, but you're limited to 2 hands and a 40-pound or 50-pound bag on Delta or whatever. Yeah. So you can't take it all. But yeah, I guess going back to just for a second to RHINO Man, we printed off these fake media badges.
Oh yeah.
And
I learned that from you guys.
Yeah, we printed off the fake media badges and was able to get like 60 pounds. And we'd carry them in like these golf cases, these like hard-sided golf cases. So, and usually the golf cases didn't get flagged for oversized.
Managed to save a little bit. Yeah, because I think with a press pass too, you technically can have up to like 20 cases internationally on at least Delta. I don't know if every airline's like that. And then I think it's a little bit cheaper per bag, because otherwise, with all, I don't know how many. Do you remember how many bags you guys took on like the bigger trip?
We took a drone. We had the Inspire, and we took that, and that was before the drones got really small. And so the second trip, we had 2 golf cases, a giant drone, camera gear, camping gear. We had,
all your clothes.
We had
and everything.
we had and then clothes, and so we had a ton of gear for 4 people, and I think we brought we had this time lapse thing, and it was a lot of gear.
That thing. What was that called? Cine Slider. Yeah, that thing was a beast.
Yeah, that thing was a beast. Yeah.
Man, because when I went in 2020, I think I took, it was like 7 checked bags and like 2 carry-ons or something like that. Yeah. And it's like, that was insane. But you guys probably had almost double that, I'm guessing, between all of you.
Yeah. And I think that's, that's what I like about the going on these trips. It's making sure you have everything you need, and being able to, because a lot of the places that I like to go and with, South Africa and stuff, it's like you can't go down and get a replacement part for, your camera, or if you're missing something, you're just going to have to live without it.
Yeah. So you need to make sure it's all there and in line and works. I mean, you've done some pretty crazy trips. I mean, you cycled across the U.S.
Yeah.
You've climbed some pretty big mountains. I feel like there's some other crazy stories in there. What do you remember, like the first big trip you did like that? And did you have any anxiety around?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the first big one was, the Trans-America Trail. Yeah. And just gearing up for that. And that was actually kind of in the middle of the whole RHINO Man
I think
process.
You were on that when I was in South Africa for the first time, actually. Yeah. It was 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just, we geared up our bikes with, saddlebags and tents and everything we needed, and we shipped them out to Astoria, Oregon. And they have a service there. There's a bike shop there, and they'll actually put your bike together, kind of tune it up, and then you fly out there and basically ride it back. So so that was like one of the first. Yeah, and then flying. It's always interesting, like flying on a plane. You always get a little bit of like, what the hell am I doing, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And definitely had one of those
moments on that trip.
On that trip, flying out there was like, all right, this is actually going to do it.
Now I got to pedal all the way back.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that sounded like an epic trip. Especially, it's like from what you were saying, like the West Coast into the Rockies there.
Yeah.
And are there any highlights or moments of, when you first got there and started riding, was there a moment of like what, you said on the way out there on the airplane, but after I did a kind of a similar trip going down the West Coast, and I know I had some experiences early on, but was there any like, maybe this is a bad idea?
Oh, I mean, day one. Yeah. Day one, I think, was the hardest. Just, I fell off the bike a couple times on day one. I got kind of a cut on the back of my leg on day one, and those hills there and on the coast was just like, there was a lot steeper. And I think the first day we were planning on doing 40 or 50 miles, and that was kind of the pace we needed to go. And I think we went maybe 12 miles, 10 or 12 miles, and got a campsite immediately. And we're just like, all right,
this is brutal.
This is brutal. So
was there a point where it kind of shifted over and you got into like the rhythm and you're like, okay, this is actually pretty epic?
Yeah. It took maybe probably about 5 or 6 days to, and then also your legs are just burning, they really hurt. And and then after, 4 or 5 days, you kind of get into that rhythm of just packing up and getting going, and you kind of play little games with your brain and stuff. It's like, all right, we used to do 10 before 10, so 10 miles before 10 was kind of our main thing. And you just kind of learn, you get into kind of a rhythm. And I think a lot of the cycling community, because there's other cyclists doing that, and we always slept in, or we'd sleep in a little bit, and some of those people were out by like 6, 5:30. Just pushing the miles. But we, you definitely want to have a good time and see the coast and see, see what's out there. So.
Yeah. I mean, when I did my trip, I think a big part of it was going into it. Like I wanted it to be more of I don't know if adventure is the right word, but like an experience versus just like a challenge to see how fast I could get somewhere. Cause there's so many amazing sights along the way. And it kind of leads into another thing I want to talk, which is part of RHINO Man as well, you becoming a filmmaker, but your passion was originally photography, right? I know I've seen a lot of amazing photography you took from not only that trip across the States, but you had a recent one in Mongolia we can talk about a bit, but you're an amazing photographer.
Thank you.
And just kind of curious, like where that journey started for you if it was always tied in with the travel side or kind of came about separately.
Yeah, it kind of came up separately, but they go hand in hand. And, I think I went to school for commercial photography, which is a lot of like, it was a lot more like portraits. It kind of gave me a good foundation, I believe, of just being able to, a lot of like studio environment, lights, and, but I never kind of like gravitated towards that. I always kind of gravitated towards more stuff that was outside, natural light. It's always fun to shoot with lights and stuff, but I always found it more natural to shoot, with daylight.
Was it more like subject matter? Like, were you trying to capture things just kind of happening in the wild versus studio type model setup?
Yeah.
Is that what maybe attracted you?
Yeah.
Do you have any people that kind of inspired you early on that were photographers? I feel like at least in recent years, you've gotten pretty into quite a few different photographers, but I don't know if there was anyone, was that a part of that process, was, seeing other photographers and their work, or was it more of just like that visceral experience that you had doing it that you were more into?
Yeah. At the time I definitely have my different photographers that I love and enjoy their work and stuff, but it was always more of a personal thing for me, and being able to, a lot of times it's kind of how you see the world a little bit. Well, I guess since it's a video podcast.
Yeah. I mean, you can grab something.
Maybe.
Yeah, you got some photography books behind you.
Ones. I just absolutely love this one. William Allard. Anybody that's into photography.
Portraits of America.
Yeah,
what years was that?
It's a good question. It feels like it was maybe the 80s, but I've always loved this book. I bought it used, and it's just, 79. It's kind of a mixture of his work, but.
So your photography journey early on, did you have any idea you would go into the filmmaking side, or how did that all kind of weave together into, working at Friendly Human and starting to do more video?
So I interned actually at Friendly Human during my time at in the commercial photography program, and I think I graduated on like Friday and went to work for Friendly Human on Monday. So there wasn't a huge gap there.
And had you done much video before that?
There was a video program in there, and it just kind of naturally clicked for me, luckily, and which a lot of things don't. So it was like I definitely just doubled down. I was like, wow, yeah, I could definitely do something like this. But yeah, it wasn't. I feel like I got very lucky, kind of transitioning into kind of a role there.
Yeah, because you kind of really grew with the organization.
Yeah.
It was pretty much just
3 or 4 people there at the time. So definitely kind of honed my skills there. But I always take a camera basically wherever I go. And I'll also take a film camera as well, like a Polaroid style camera that instantly will print out a film picture, which is amazing. And I've had so much joy with that thing, and being able to take a picture for somebody and actually give it to them. Yeah. Because a lot of times people just take pictures and it just lives on an SD card, and
or you're like, I'll send you one.
I'll send you one. It never happens. But yeah, being able to take a picture, especially while you're traveling, because it's new for you, but they live in that environment, so that's just another day for them, and they've probably seen 100 people come in and take pictures, and I think actually giving something back is the coolest experience.
Yeah, I've been with you on, I think, from what the one trip I really remember is when we went to Mexico for, I think it was News Story we were doing some video for, and you brought the Polaroid, and it's just like, you can just kind of see the joy on people's faces when you're like, oh, hey, I'll give you one, and then let me take one for me.
Yeah, it's also, it's cool that they get, they get a picture, but also it's an old technology.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll take pictures of the kids or whatever, and they don't know what it is.
Mm.
And
Yeah, no one carries around a Polaroid anymore.
When it prints it out, when it comes out of the camera, it's white. It's just pure white. So they're just like, what is this thing? And then the parents usually are like, oh, you got to shake it or, heat it up or whatever. And then just to see the image come out and they get it. And it's like, super cool.
No, I mean, yeah, your photography is really awesome.
Thank you.
Definitely feel like you need to get it out there more in some ways, because especially this last trip, you showed me some of the pictures from Mongolia. Maybe just talk about that one a little bit and what that experience was like. 'Cause it just feels like one of those places that's so remote and out there.
Yeah. So we did a trip to Mongolia in October of last year, 2023. And we went to climb, I always forget how to pronounce it, Mount Quinton. It's Quinton. It means cold in Mongolian. So it's just a very cold mountain. And it's super remote. It's in the Kazakh portion of Mongolia, up in the top left-hand corner. And the thing is, it's hard to take a bad picture while you're out there, because everything is just the backdrops and the remoteness of it all. It's like, and there's camels and there's, all these different, and there's snow in the mountains and stuff. It's really hard to take a bad picture. But
what were some of the experiences with the people there? Any like interesting culture or things that you learned while you were there?
Such a, relaxed. It was like, very, very kind people. They, we were there towards kind of the end of the season. So we went to so we had porters on our trip, and they would, strap all our luggage to these camels and take it up to base camp. And it was the end of the season. So we went on the way back down. Our company had to settle up with these porters. So it was fun to like be in the room and see them negotiate, oh yeah, we've done 6 trips this year. And, that's, and it was, but yeah, it's so kind. And there's what I always loved, there was always hot tea. There's always, when you go into somebody's house, there's always, something for your guests. And I always like that.
Yeah. And talk about the Eagle Festival a little bit too, because that was pretty amazing looking experience.
And towards the end of the trip, there was a Golden Eagle Festival, which I nerded out on the trip about, and I think I got a lot of that from RHINO Man and being in South Africa with Matt. And
yeah, Matt's a huge birder. So.
Yeah, and I nerded out about the eagles and all the, it's the female eagles that are the larger ones and the ones that they hunt with.
What did they do at the festival? What was kind of were they just showing them off, or was there like a competition? Or?
Yeah, so they do a couple different. I'm obviously not an expert in Mongolian eagle festivals, but as much as I know is they do. It's a 2-day festival, and they get eagle hunters from all over the provinces there, and they'll come in usually on horseback. Sometimes they'll ride for a day or two to get to this eagle festival. And it's just a ton of snow, and they'll actually they have to register their birds at the start of the eagle festival. So it's always I think there was 100. I think it was like 98 eagle
I didn't
hunters.
realize there was that many.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and they're all trying to register and weigh their birds so they put a little tag on the foot of the eagle, and they're all jockeying to try to register their birds, which is just interesting. And they're all on horses, and it's just kind of a cultural thing to see and to witness that, and there's prizes at the end, so they're all really. They want to win. You can win
competitive.
A motorcycle or
that's a pretty big prize.
Pretty big prize there. So,
do you know if they actually like hunt with them when, other than just training them for these festivals, do they actually use them for hunting? And
Yeah, they definitely use them for hunting, for foxes, for the golden eagles have been known to take down wolves. They have wolves there, and
they're massive.
They're massive
eagles.
They're amazing to see up close, and they have the hoods on them. So they're just kind of standing there with the hoods on, and
just to like keep them, so they can't tell what's around them.
Yeah,
and keeps them calm.
Keeps them calm,
so they don't peck out someone's eye.
Yeah, and so they do a couple different tournaments and stuff. The best looking eagle, and they'll do one where it's a partner one where they go up on top of like a cliff that's right there, and they'll release the eagle, and then there's somebody down at the bottom on a horse trying to retrieve the eagle on his hand. And there's actually a young girl that's won it the last 2 or 3 times, and it's a very male dominated sport, but there's like a young girl that's just
how young is she? Like in her teens or something? Or
yeah, she's probably 15, 16, 17.
And she's beating all these guys.
Yeah, absolute badass. I mean,
so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing, do you have any idea how much they weigh? I mean, they're pretty good size.
I think they're around 8 or 9 pounds.
Okay. Yeah, it's like just thinking of like a small person like holding an eagle on their arm.
So, I mean, so it's so cool to see that. And it's really good because you really get to see their culture there. And they put it on for, I think, tourists to see, but it also kind of supports them as well. Yeah. And actually lets them keep that tradition, around. So.
Yeah, it looked like a pretty incredible trip.
Yeah.
I was keeping tabs on you guys when you were over there. I was like, damn, I'm going to have to talk to Nick when he gets back.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, I feel like you're really kind of it's been like a long-term thing, it seems like, but designing your life to be able to give yourself opportunities for more of these experiences. I mean, you talk about it a little bit, you've like built out a van so you can do a little bit of the van life and travel more that way. I mean, what's, looking into the future on the travel or the photography or the filmmaking side, is there anything that you're kind of have your eyes set on at the moment?
At the moment, I just want to. I've always tried to kind of build up a good, just base of photos, and I really like photos that are more timeless, that, and they're really hard to, for me at least, it's really hard to get. Sometimes I'll go a long time without getting a photo that I'm proud of or that I really, really like myself. So it's, it's always a constant kind of, you're always trying to get like a really good photo that you're proud of. So,
it's like that elusive hunt.
Yeah,
that
it's
you're
kind
always
of an
on.
elusive hunt, I never really thought of it kind of like that, but yeah, you're always trying to like, and sometimes the like if you see a photo and you really like it, you don't really realize if it's good or bad until you get to the editing or get into Lightroom or however you do it. So
yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts about just the way we experience photos now? Because I think like social media on one hand makes it more accessible to everybody, but I don't know if there's a way you prefer to take in great photography.
Yeah. So I think Instagram is, it's the worst when it comes to photos. It's like, it's on like a little screen, small. Obviously printing. I think photos are meant to be printed. So I've actually started kind of dabbling and doing my own printing.
Yeah.
I'd love to like put some prints out there in the world, and I would love to do a book at someday.
So you need to put like a little gallery together or something.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a pretty cool experience to have.
Yeah.
So what kind of advice would you give to someone that might be coming up in, I don't know, just their career? Or, because we've talked about photography, filmmaking, travel, all those things. Maybe someone that's kind of seeking similar path. What kind of advice would you give them? Because I feel like you're still young. You still got a lot of adventures and films and photography to go. But I feel like you've done a pretty amazing job at building a life where you're able to have a lot of these experiences. So I don't know if you have any advice for someone that might be starting out, maybe back in, high school, going into university or something like that, thinking about these paths.
Yeah. So, that's a good one. So when I was in my first semester of photography, the photography school there, the whole first semester was film. And, we developed our own film and printed and shot film for the whole first semester. And there was a film store down here that sold all that stuff. I think it was called Showcase or something like that. And, I was pretty young and I had to go buy a bunch of supplies, and it was like $500 or something. It was pretty expensive to get all the film and the paper and the...
You're doing like the darkroom
stuff, yeah. And I was like going to cash out, and the guy there, he was, I don't know what he was just super mean. He was like, oh, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm going to school for photography. He's like, good luck making any money in it. It's like
cynical,
trying to just like crush my dreams that I had, and I don't know why that kind of stuck with me. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to let that, be my future. So, it's like, yeah, you definitely can do it. So I think if you want to do it and you have that passion, and, definitely go for it. And, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And, you can do it for yourself. And I think that's the kind of beauty of, the photography is you can do it for yourself, you can do it for other people, and just have fun with it. And
it can be anywhere from a hobby to a profession, just whatever level.
And I definitely do it as a profession a lot, but also I do it as a hobby.
Do you feel like there's a balance to that, or do you feel like you can lose the joy in it if it becomes too serious sometimes?
You definitely, there was a time where I was shooting so much that it, it wasn't fun. So, and then you're spending a lot of your creative juices on work that's not even, yours, or doesn't feel like yours.
Yeah. Trying to pay the bills.
Trying to pay the bills. So, you just have to find a balance, I think. So, I mean, I guess nowadays it's the time to, there's always a need for, photo and video and stuff. So we live in a great age to try to do that as
long as AI doesn't take it over, and then we'll leave that for another chat.
That's another.
But no, man, this has been a pleasure talking with you and doing this podcast. I feel this is the first time I'm doing video, so it's a little different for me too, just to actually sit in front of someone for real, which is really fun, because Zoom can be a terrible process to communicate with someone.
Yeah. You actually have to wear pants for this one. So.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you can't really see, but yeah, I mean, it's just been really awesome getting to know you, man, over the years, and being friends with you. And you're always just like so generous with everyone and what you do. And you're a really freaking hard worker. And I've always enjoyed, even just our projects that we've gone out and had to shoot together and travel and all that. It's always a really awesome experience. So I just want to tell you, thank you for everything you've done for RHINO Man again, and for coming on this podcast and sharing some of your story and what you've been through.
Dude, likewise. Thank you. So, you've definitely been a big part of the whole project. And, I mean, thanks for the kind words, but the way that you've taken the project and, really pushed it and brought it to where it is now, it's like, I can't thank you enough. So yeah, dude, I mean,
awesome, man. And thanks. That means a lot coming from you. And maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the RHINO Man podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you're excited to see the film succeed, please subscribe, like, rate, and review our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Then follow us on Instagram and Facebook at RHINO Man the Movie. More details about RHINO Man, the social impact campaign, and future screenings are at rhinomanthemovie.org. To learn more about the Global Conservation Corps and their work, visit globalconservationcorps.org. Sign up for the newsletter and follow GCC on all of the social platforms. If you like this podcast, make sure to subscribe to and catch up on GCC's Voices of Nature podcast, where Bob Ludke interviews a wide range of people who have dedicated their lives to making a difference in conservation. A special thanks goes out to Simone Wilson for the music for this podcast. He is a brilliant composer for RHINO Man the movie. Learn more about his work at simonewilsonmusic.com. Until next time, I'm John Jerko, and this is the RHINO Man podcast.